Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you to the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee Summer Soiree. My name is Reardon Sullivan, and I'm the chairman of the MCGOP.
Montgomery County team, you all are amazing. This is the one thing you have to realize too, is that there are more Republicans in Montgomery County than there are in Howard, right? You just don't have anyone elected to statewide office or even local office at this point. And there's a good point, and there's a good reason why that happened. And it's because the people we have currently in control of our state care more about controlling the state and their power, their re-elections than they do about getting people who represent Maryland down in Annapolis.
And I've just been obsessed with getting to the truth wherever I can find it. And what we all know is that with each passing day, it's actually harder and harder and harder to do that very simple thing, which is to find facts. Because in order to form educated opinions about anything, you need a good fact set from which to work. And there's an entire industry of so-called news outlets who are working against that goal, aren't they? We just went through, and I hope I can maintain that past tense, a pandemic wherein the central origin of the entire pandemic was fed to us as a lie for a year and a half. And the only people who were willing to talk about it happened to be conservative. Because what I've discovered is conservatives are the only ones who seem to be open-minded about examining facts. Liberals have become a closed-minded religious orthodox. And in fact, with critical race theory in particular, there's beginning to be, and this is where I get optimistic, a reaction to this. Because no matter whether you can play their semantic games, no matter whether you can go and you can say, oh, I can define that, you know for a fact that it is poison to teach people to judge each other on the basis of one feature. It's the feature that we all have worked for many years to avoid judging people on. It's the fundamental feature that the Civil Rights Movement was encouraging us not to judge each other on. In other words, what should be happening in our schools is that we should be teaching the full history of America, not some constrained version that teaches Marxism to our children. One of the silver linings of this pandemic, as awful as it was, as awful as the impact was to the United States and to the world, is we learned a lot more about our government. We learned that the highest paid federal employee is a guy called Dr. Anthony Fauci. He makes $417,000 a year. And it happens to have a hand in the funding of the very lab which seems to have produced the virus that has run rampant on the planet. Might be worth getting to the bottom of that one. Also, we learned what was happening in our children's classrooms. So with our children home, all of a sudden our ability to see inside of that classroom and to get a sense of what that experience was. It's not a knock on all teachers, mind you. I'm sure there's teachers among us. But it is a sense that, wait a second, I didn't know my kid was learning that. I didn't know that that's what the day-to-day looked like. You know, as conservatives, we often think about threats to our liberty coming from the government, and of course that does happen. We should fight back against that. But guess what? It's coming from every direction. It's coming from every direction. So, in order for us to survive that onslaught, we have to speak truth, we have to speak up, we have to be brave, we have to confront these things when we encounter them. But sometimes, maybe all you have to do is stand up and say, no. That's right. That's it. You don't need to give a big speech. You don't need to make a big stink. Just say, thanks, I'm not participating. And I think that will go a long way. People see that. They connect with that. And they feel the same way. They just didn't want to say it until they saw you say it. Anyway, with that, I'm really grateful for you having me here. If any of you have any questions, should I take some questions? By all means, please. I could talk about Chris Plant all day.